Alrighty, class. This is mid-chapter checkpoint. I'm going to do a few problems as review for your test tomorrow. So the first thing that you need to understand is the vocabulary. So we have here 3 words that we've been talking about all these past couple of weeks, which is equivalent fractions. What is equivalent fractions? So equivalent fractions are fractions that are equal to a fraction, but we use equivalent fractions to have a fraction with the same denominator. Let's see. And then we have a common denominator. Common denominator is when we have a denominator. So if we have, for example, 1/6, this is our denominator. So when we have 2 fractions, we need the denominators to be the same number, because when we add or subtract fractions, we have to have the same denominator in order to do that. So common denominator is when 2 fractions have the same denominator. Common multiple is when you have, for example, when you list the multiples for 3 and 6. So you're trying to find a multiple that both the 3 and the 6 share. In this case, if we go by 3s, we count 3, 6, 9, 12. So we're counting by 12. And if we do it with the 6, we have 6, 12, 18. So here you can see that we have the least common denominator. The least common multiple is 6. So this is a common multiple because both denominators have that multiple in common. Another common denominator will be 12. Now, the 6 would be the least common multiple. That is not one of our vocabulary words, but just as a review, 6 would be the least because it's the smallest common multiple. So, the first question says, a blank is a number that is a multiple of 2 or more numbers. So here the key word is that we have multiple of 2 or more numbers. See, these are 2 numbers, and it's multiple of 2 numbers, minimum 2 numbers. So in this case, what would be the word that will fill in the blank? Common multiple. So make sure you understand that. Common multiple, because you have 2 numbers that share or have the same multiple. Number 2, a blank is a common multiple. So see how we're referring to common multiple here. So with the process of elimination, you know that it cannot be common multiple because the definition has the word common multiple. So a blank is a common multiple of 2 or more denominators. Oh, bingo, denominators. So this is a common denominator. Okay, so these are our 2 words. Now let's go ahead and review the concept and skills section. So when we're estimating, I know a lot of you had questions on estimating, so make sure that you pay close attention. If you need to rewind or so that you can watch the section again, go for it. I'm going to go ahead and do the number 4 just because many of you probably did number 3 already. So number 4 has 3 and 2/5. So for estimating, this is a keyword, estimate. You're not solving it. You're making an educated guess. So you have 3 and 2/5 minus 5/8. Remember about the benchmark, meaning we're looking at 3 numbers to make an estimate. We have 0, half, and 1. Okay? So when you look at your number, 3 and 2/5, 3 is a whole number. So for now, don't worry about it. Look at the 2/5. When you think about 2/5, you think, is 2/5 closer to 0, closer to a half, or closer to 1? Look at the denominator. The denominator is 5. So when you think of an estimate, you're going to either go with 0, half, or 1. 2/5, is it closer to 0, a half, or 1? So you think about where 2/5 lies in this number line. Is it between 0 and a half or half and 1? The way that you can figure that out is by looking and comparing your numerator with the denominator. So what is half of 5? Well, it's an odd number, right? So it will be somewhere where it will be between 2 and 3. That will be half of 5. So that means that half is between 2/5 and 3/5. That's half of 5. So 2/5, is it closer to half? So now we know that it's between 0 and 2, it's between 0 and 1/2. Now the question is it closer to half or is it closer to 0? Well, we just mentioned that half of 5 is 2.5, or it's between 2 and 3. So that means that my 2/5 is closer to this benchmark, which is half. So I'm going to go ahead and write 3 because I keep my whole number. That number is easy to work with. But now instead of putting 2/5, I'm going to work with half because I'm estimated. It's an educated guess. And 2/5 is closer to a half. So you're kind of just like rounding it to a half. And now I'm going to do 5/8. So 5/8, is it closer to 0? Is it closer to a half? Or is it closer to 1? So you want to compare the numerator and the denominator. What is half of 8? And I guess this is a place where you can start. What is half of 8? Because half of 8 will be my half benchmark. So 4 is half of 8, right? Is 4 close to 5? It is. So then I can say that half will be my educated guess. I'm going to use that benchmark. So now I'm ready to subtract. I have 3/2 minus a half. If you're still having trouble to figure this out, I will advise that you draw a model to help you understand this better. And I always like to use the example of pizza because it's something that I like, right? I like pizza. And let's say that you're having like a movie night and you order 3 pizzas and a half. Yeah, I know. You wouldn't order half a pizza, but let's say that you have 3.5 pizzas. Maybe your brother or your sister ate half of it, or your friend ate half of it. So now you just have 3.5 pizzas. Okay, this is half of a pizza. And then you're saying, okay, I have 3.5 pizzas, and then we have a subtraction sign. Subtraction means we're taking it away. We're taking away half. So just pretend that, you know what, you're being nice to your friend and you say, hello friend, I'm going to give you half of my pizza. I'm going to give you half of a pizza. So you take away half. So if I take away half of a pizza, how many pizzas do I have left? Well, I have 1, 2, 3. 3 pizzas left. So 3.5 minus a half equals 3. Estimating is meant to make things easier. It's something that you can do in your head by an educated guess. And to make our educated guess, we're rounding off our fractions to either 0, half, or 1. So let's try it with number 5. Number 5, we have 1 and 5/6 plus 2 and 2/11. So let's start with number 5. We have 1 and 5/6. 5 is very close to 6. So remember that if I had 6 over 6, that's equal to 1 whole. So 5 is pretty close to 6, so I know that I can round it to my benchmark number 1. You are pretty much just selecting either 0, half, or 1. What is my fraction closest to? 0, half, or 1. In this case, 5/6 is closer to 1 because half would be 3 over 6. And 5 is closer to 1 than to half of 6, which would be 3. So 1, 5/6. 5/6 will be my 1, but I already have a whole 1. So then that means that I have 2, right? 1 and 1 equals 2. So that's 2 plus, and now I look at my second number. I have 2 wholes, and my fraction is 2 over 11. Is that closer to 0, half, or 1? What's half of 11? Well, you should have said 5.5. So 5.5, between 0 and 5.5, or 5, 2 is more closer to 0. So that's why when I estimate, I'm going to estimate or use my benchmark 0 because 2 11ths is closer to 0. And I have 2 whole. So my estimate is that I'm going to add 2. Basically, I'm not even counting the fraction, in other words. And now I say that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, you're still having trouble? I would recommend that you watch the video again because it's more like using your common sense. You know, think about it. If I have a slice of pizza that is cut in 6 and I have 5 pieces, do I have almost a whole pizza or almost only half of it? Or there's no pizza left? When you think about 2 11ths, same idea. It's like if you're cutting your pizza in 11 pieces. If you only have 2 pieces left out of those 11 slices, do you have almost a pizza that is gone? Or do you have almost half the pizza? Or do you have almost the whole pizza? If you only have 2 slices left of 11 pieces, then your pizza is almost gone. And that's why it's safe to say that we only have 2, the whole number 2. All right, now let's move on to the next section. And the next section will help you with the last section, finding the common denominator. So common denominator, let's do this example, the 3/8 and 3/10. So the first step number 1 is to find your common denominator. So you do that by writing your multiples. The multiples of 8 is 8, 16, so I'm just counting by 8, 16, 24, and 32. No, wait. Yeah, 32. And then we have our multiples of 10, so we go count by 10, 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, I don't see any common denominator, any common multiples, so that means that I need to keep going. So my next number would be 40. Oh, there it is. Here, I just found the common denominator. So my common denominator is 40. That's my first part of the question. But if you read the instruction, it says, use a common denominator to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction. So I need to find the equivalent fraction for each one of these fractions. So I found my common denominator. Now my next step is to find the equivalent fraction. How do I do that? Well, you want to write your fractions. Like I said, I would advise you write it in vertical form. I'm going to use a space right here to work. You should use a scratch paper when you do that so you don't get confused. So 3/8. What is my equivalent fraction to 3/8? Well, I already found my common denominator, so that means I'm going to be using 40. And I'm going to write the other one here on the side. Okay, so for 3/10, my common denominator will also be 40. See, so I have 2 40s because that's the common denominator. Now let's start with the first one. You look at your denominator. You start with the denominator first. What number do you need to multiply the 8 by to get 40? So 8 times what number equals 40? Oh, well, you can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have to multiply by 5. So if I multiply the denominator by 5, I need to multiply the numerator by 5. And let me just cover all this because I know it looks kind of nasty with all that writing there. Okay, so if I multiply the denominator by 5, I need to multiply the numerator by 5. What's 3 times 5? 15. So this is my first equivalent fraction, and I'm going to write it here. That's my first answer. 15 over 40. Now let's do the next one. 3/10 is equal to, so you need to find what do I multiply 10 by to get 40. Okay, so 10 times 4. 10 times 4 equals 40. So if I multiply the denominator by 4, I need to multiply the numerator by 4. What's 3 times 4? 12. So that's the equivalent fraction for my second set. 12 over 40. And that's it for number 7. Okay, look at the next video to for the review for problems like number 9, 10, 11, and 12, 13, and 14.